All right, getting a bit of a late start, but we should be okay. Something I've noticed we have done recently in Justin's class, which I've appreciated, is he will have some of you share some things that you have thought about the week before. Have like a student that had done so, choose another student do so the following week. So I'd like to begin to do something similar. I did say from the outset of this class that diligent note-taking would be required, and I've noticed most of you have been doing that. So to start out today, I would like two note-takers who I've noticed to be very good note-takers to start us on this chain of sharing. And those two people will be Hannah and Benji. So if you could, basically all I want from you, just to give us a minute or two of your time to just review what we covered last week. This is something that we'll do regularly. So we'll start with Hannah, and then Benji, you can go ahead.
You don't know if I have the book that I usually write.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay, I can choose someone
I
else.
can do it next.
Isaac, later. So, but Hannah, you go ahead and go first. Just give us a bit of a review. If it's simply you just reading your notes, that's fine. But you are very encouraged to share more thoughts that you have, that you may have had reflecting on things, maybe throughout last week and stuff. So.
Okay. Remember last week you were reading, you were talking about the deepen vow.
Yes.
That he lived a while before Confucius, but he was an inspiration for Confucius and kind of a role model. And he kind of took the role of king while waiting for the young heir to come of age. I thought that was interesting because I'd never really known anything like that could happen, where like the king would pass away and the heir is too young to assume the throne. So that was interesting. And we were talking about goodness and how it's like multifaceted. And like I'm still trying to come to understand what exactly Confucius and the book is meaning by goodness, but so far I've kind of picked up some of the facets are love, selflessness, and it's like a relational thing.
Yes.
And then I think that's most of what we were talking about. Talking about rules a little bit, and like looking at them in the right way. I think those were most of the notes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Isaac.
Yeah, what I noted was the core of a good man, which is to be a good son and brother, which was highlighted to me in light of fulfilling your role in the household. I think there's a connection there for me of and the way that you would put it is to judge it based on your willingness. So where is my heart behind even being a son to my father or a brother to my brothers? And it kind of gave me some more insight even into what to look for, and as well as some of the Analects you had us read in book 2. I think also had a lot to do with the household relationships. And so for me it highlighted that goodness really does start in those core relationships, as we've heard, within the relationships within the household, and then it expands out as we've talked about. And so that's kind of the main, I don't know, there's something very simple about it. It's just a very simple principle. Be a good son, brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely not the last time we'll be looking at that together, and I do look forward to reviewing your writings, which reminder those are due this Sunday. So thank you both. What I'll do, I guess, is have Hannah pick another lady, and then Isaac, another guy. So Hannah, who will share next week.
That's good.
Who?
Emma.
Okay.
Benji's already following up. He has some redemption work.
So this is an additional requirement, okay? It's required of Isaac and Hannah because it's the first time I'm having you guys do this. But you are going. I mean, at the beginning of the class, you're being told that you're going to be sharing your notes on it next week, okay? So obviously you want to make sure you're very thorough. But I also would like you to, throughout, at least at some point this week, do a bit of a review of your notes and share some insight, further insight, as to what you learned in class today, okay? Does that make sense? You're going to be taking thorough notes and then review them and then offer some thoughts about them.
Today or next week?
Yeah, you're going to be doing it next week.
Okay.
Yeah,
But of today's
Yeah.
time.
right. Okay. So, how have you guys felt about this mode of class where I've been reading something that you don't actually have with you? I mean, besides Elijah and whoever else happens to have this copy. I just want to know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah. Okay. I find it a bit difficult to retain.
Yep, good observation.
I think it's good because it does connect obviously to what we're reading in the Analects, but in different ways. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to decrypt a little bit.
Yeah.
And not being able to follow along with the words makes it a little bit more of a challenge.
It does.
And it also makes it so that you you have to listen more intently, I feel like. I appreciate it because I can be writing notes while I'm listening to you speak. Because like when I'm reading along with you, I'm reading the words as well, so I can't be reading and writing at the same time. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
I have realized that if I don't go back over my notes,
Mm-hmm.
I don't retain it. But if I go back over it, something interesting, I actually am taking notes and then transferring them to another notebook, and that helps me.
Sounds like a good student over there.
It's harder for me as well, I feel like, to retain the information while I'm writing notes, and when I have something that's with me, I can go back and look at it, which I think is easier, but I also do enjoy, like, listening to you and trying to pay attention, but I also feel like I miss stuff sometimes because I'm trying to write notes, but then you say something good, and then I can't get to it in time.
Yeah.
But that's the only struggle I have.
Yeah, all very valid points. I was thinking about it myself because I would feel the same way if I was in your place and not having the text with me, so that not only I could read along when the leader of the class was reading, but so that what I would appreciate most is being able to review it, go back throughout the week and take a look at stuff, which most of you guys aren't able to do because you don't have this. But in thinking about it, I realized there's actually it has worked out very well that this is the case for this class. Certainly for the points that Haley and Kim just mentioned, which are indicating something further about the significance of listening. This class, just want you guys to know, this class of going through the Analects together is, I could say it's merely introductory. So we're not getting into the depths of these things. And I don't even think we will. At least in this season, in this stage of going through these things together. And that is also intentional as well. Remember, one thing I also said from the beginning is that we're not quite ready, in a way, to really receive what this sort of thing has to offer. And this conversation I'm bringing right now is actually going to show you why that is. Having the ability to follow along as easily as you would be able to if you even had this book wouldn't actually require as much of you as not having the book does. Not just in class, but I'm talking about more importantly outside of class, beyond class time. So this is like an opportunity to practice a different way of learning. Because a few of you guys mentioned not really being able to retain as much as a result of not having the text, right? That is actually not the point of the class. It's not being able to remember. The goal is not to be able to remember all of those terms, and that's what we've been talking about, right? That's actually like been the meat of our discussion is what does goodness mean? What's the importance of filial relationships, and what do we mean when we talk about the way? All of these different things. If you really had a true desire to know more about these things, you would pursue them yourself. Not just remain content to have everything as it kind of is in class time, just kind of fed to you, spoon-fed to you, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but that's kind of the way the format of the class tends to be is you kind of just sit there listening and I give you a bunch of information. There's nothing inherently bad about that. But we should also be careful when we think about what it means to be a good student, what it means to be a good listener, that we adopt this falsely humble idea of just being a listener and nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Because a listener in that sense is not actually a true listener. A listener actually does something with what he or she listens to.
Can I add in there too?
Yeah.
And this is something we say a lot, but it's also the preparation of the heart coming into something and that readiness to hear.
Because if your heart and your mind isn't in the right place to receive, which is just the very first phase of learning, then you mess it up from the very beginning. So preparation ahead of time is pretty essential. But like a silly metaphor I have is that a good teacher kind of just gives the student the shovel. It's the student that does all the digging, not the teacher. The teacher's just meant to kind of give you a little shove. Like you've probably heard that before when it comes to teaching. The student is supposed to put in the effort. So that's what depends on you guys. And no, I'm not actually really at all talking about the effort in class. I'm talking about the effort, the interest, the passion even that you put into these studies outside of class, in your own time, in your own personal space. Otherwise, the significance of these things is confined to the classroom for you. I've really always been amused by how easy it is to tell when a student isn't really caring that much about what they're reading. And it just happened the other day when we were going through my dad's class, and he said, "Did anyone look up what this word meant?" Not a single person got back to him on that. But if you were reading through something you actually cared about, just think about this in a super simple way. If you were reading through something that you actually thought was important, and you you come across a word that you don't know the meaning of, but then you keep going, how does that match up with it actually being in fact being something you care about? If you're willing to just to glaze over a new word or a foreign or unfamiliar word, to me that's a pretty sharp indicator of maybe there being a little bit of interest, effort at least to get through the assignment of the week, because you know it's a good thing to do. You have some kind of simmering interest in what we're looking through, but you're not taking it seriously. I know for a fact that there are probably plenty of words we're going through, even in the Analects and its commentary, that you guys have either never seen before, because that's how it's been for me. Even rereading this book for like the third or fourth time, there's still words I'll come across that maybe I'd looked up the definition to before, but then forgot about because I hadn't used it enough. I know there are words in there. Again, I'm not like placing a ton of importance on learning new vocabulary. That's an excellent thing to do. But it's a very good indicator for how serious you are about what you're reading. Emmanuel would encourage that many, many times. Actually, as we went through that book together, my dad has done the same. And now I would like to do the same to you. Take what you're reading seriously. And don't skip over words, don't skip over passages that you don't understand. Not so that you're able to answer a pop quiz that I throw at you in class, because that's not really going to happen. That's not really my teaching style. But so that you're actually grasping what we're going through together. And that is, I would think that is a very easy place to be inspired by, or have a certain question about something arise in you, say about what you read. And a few of you, not many of you, have done this. Like, I was asked the other day, what is actually meant by a gentleman? Why is that term being used so much? It was a really honest and good question. And I'm really glad I was asked that question. And I hope such questions are asked of me more often, because it was coming from a place of simply and sincerely wanting to know. And that's the kind of heart that we need as we go forward in this quest. There's an Analect I'm actually going to assign you guys to read this week. I'd like to look at it right now before we get into the short reading here in the introduction. That is 7.8. You can turn with me there if you want to. This is Confucius talking. He says, I will not open the door for a mind that is not already striving to understand. Nor will I provide words to a tongue that is not already struggling to speak. If I hold up one corner of a problem, and the student cannot come back to me with the other three, I will not attempt to instruct him again. That illustration of Confucius being the one that draws one corner for a student. And if the student doesn't make the effort to draw the other three corners to complete the square, if you will, of the concept being taught, or the exercise being demonstrated, whatever it is, then Confucius won't teach that student. Would you want to teach a student that just kind of stares at you blankly or shrugs when you begin to try to move them into something that they themselves have said they want to learn or commit themselves to? Like, this isn't, it doesn't take a lot of experience to see just, or to be able to relate to Confucius there. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. And I can't really see I am, at least presently, unable to see myself as like this teacher of things that I very thoroughly and deeply understand to a bunch of you who don't know about. I'm not seeing it that way at all, because I feel like there's a lot. I mean, I think it will always be this way, but there's a lot for me to still learn in this, and I'm really excited to continue to do that with you guys. My having a little bit more experience with it makes it to where I'm able to kind of lead us forward in that. But I've said it before, so I'm repetitive at this point, but I'm like a student with you guys in this, so that's actually where I come from, and wanting to be able to like talk with you guys about it. Because even when you ask questions to me about something, I would hope it becomes more of like a conversational thing, not like I'm the authority on what, say, a term like the gentleman means or things like that. So it's something we figure out together. So I don't see myself as like being in Confucius's place as a teacher. But for any one of us that do have a genuine interest in these things, we're not going to want to converse with, say in the place of using the word teaching, converse with or learn with other students who aren't willing to complete the square, aren't willing or aren't struggling to speak. What's the other example you used? I posted 7.8. A mind that's not already striving to understand. You can tell, you can identify these things in people very easily. You can it doesn't take a lot of experience and insight to see a mind that's striving to understand. A tongue that's struggling to speak. That one I think a lot of us have. So, again, it's not a bad thing. But a tongue that refuses to speak is different from a tongue that struggles to speak. Okay, let's get into the reading together. Page 22 here. So, we've covered the last 2 or 3 sections. We've gone over goodness together. So this is continuing from last week's reading. Besides goodness, there is a host of other virtues which the gentleman is supposed to possess, and we must discuss at least the more important of these. There are 2 virtues which are often mentioned together with goodness. And if you think of goodness in terms of another way we have put it, like love, the pairing of these 2 virtues might sound familiar to some of you. They are wisdom or intelligence, truth, and courage, yun. So there's the 3. Goodness or love, wisdom, and courage. For instance, Confucius said, "The man of wisdom is never in 2 minds. The man of benevolence or of goodness never worries. The man of courage is never afraid." And there are 3 things constantly on the lips of the gentleman, none of which I have succeeded in following. A man of goodness never worries. A man of wisdom is never in 2 minds. A man of courage is never afraid. Isn't it interesting that he would basically mention this? He would give that same phrase in 2 different places. I mean, whenever something's repeated like that in wisdom literature, probably means it's pretty important. A man of wisdom is never in 2 minds in his judgment about right and wrong. A man who lacks wisdom, however, can easily mistake the specious for the genuine. So specious meaning fake. or not real. This can happen with borderline cases where the application of a rule or a definition becomes uncertain, particularly in the sphere of morals. Take a concrete example. This may be a concrete example, but it's not going to be one that we're very familiar with because this is very historically related. So something that may have been used as an example in Confucius' time. When a ruler gives his concubine the same privileges as his consort, or his younger son, the same privileges as the heir, doubt is sown in the minds of the people. So you can just imagine an instance where a ruler is giving a lot more favor to someone who's really in a lesser position in relationship to himself. So there seems to be something, at least according to Chinese culture and their understanding of relationships, way off about that. To all outward appearance, the concubine is indistinguishable from the consort, or the younger son from the heir. It takes a man of wisdom not to be perplexed by such phenomena. Another attribute of the wise man is that he has knowledge of men. In other words, he is a good judge of character. That's a very important. In the Chinese view, the most important factor contributing to the difficulty of predicting the future lies in the unpredictable nature of man. Thus, the study of human character, through which the only hope of gaining some degree of control over future events lies, was considered a matter of vital importance to the ruler, as the present and future stability of his state often depended on his choice of ministers. So the way the judgment of human character worked into the teaching of or instruction of a young ruler is you've got to have that ability, because it will be your responsibility to choose people that will work with you as a ruler, your ministers. That's what ministers are. So one minister may be responsible for agriculture and development in that realm of the state. Another might be responsible for construction and the building of sort of thing. I don't have everything listed as to how an ancient Chinese state would be governed, but you have ministers for different aspects of your rule. You don't do it all yourself as a ruler. So choosing the right people, not just people that have, obviously, and we'll look at this in the Analects, judging human character did not just have to do with seeing how well they were able to do the task assigned to them, but the heart and attitude in which they did that. And how does that look for us today as the nearest practical example? Being an employer. I think every one of us, our parents, for instance, have in some capacity had the responsibility to judge the character of people that have come under their employment. So that is an extremely real and near at hand example of this very principle. It is a very important skill to have, because even your own livelihood and the livelihood of your occupation and business depends on it. This kind of study of human character, which was to become from the Eastern Han onwards one of the major preoccupations of Chinese thinkers, was already of great importance in Confucius' day. Thus, when Fan Mature asked about wisdom, the master said, "Know your fellow men." I think you guys just read this week, Jaden mentioned in our previous Analects class, it was 116, I think. You guys remember? Do not seek to, or it's not important that others know you, but it's important that you know others. Something like that. But is wisdom acquired? It is true, Confucius said, those who are born with knowledge are the highest. Next come those who attain knowledge through study. Next again come those who turn to study after having been vexed by difficulties. The common people, insofar as they make no effort to study, even after having been vexed by difficulties, are the lowest. It gives kind of a hierarchy of the way knowledge or wisdom is acquired. It's interesting that he would mention the very first and highest being you're born with it. That's a possibility. But as it says here, he made no claim to be amongst those born with knowledge. In fact, he explicitly rejected this when he said, I was not born with knowledge, but being fond of antiquity, or of the ancient things, I am quick to see it. That is knowledge. He further said this of himself. Confucius giving you advice on how he learns. I use my ears widely and follow what is good and what I have heard. I use my eyes widely and retain what I have seen in my mind. This constitutes a lower level of knowledge. So he acknowledges that even his manner of learning is still a lower level of attaining knowledge. He did not seem to have granted that anyone was actually born with knowledge. All he did was to leave open the possibility of there actually being such a category of people. Judging by the tremendous emphasis he placed on learning, what mattered to him was that it was possible to acquire knowledge through learning. Learning is, to him, a process that can never be completed. As Su Xia said, a man can indeed be said to be eager to learn who is conscious in the course of a day of what he lacks, and who never forgets in the course of a month what he has mastered. So there's a constant reflection of yourself as to what you don't know, what you don't have, and what you do know. In fact, that's much along the lines of what Confucius, he might mention this later, but what Confucius said to another disciple regarding wisdom. He said, this is wisdom. To know what you don't know, and to accept or know that you don't know other things. Much better way. It was put much better than in the Analects, but I have to paraphrase my memory. Indeed, according to Confucius, a man is worthy of being a teacher who gets to know what is new by keeping fresh in his mind what he is already familiar with. So Confucius never forgot, he never undermined the fundamentals, the basics. Doesn't mean he dwelt in them, but they were always present in his learning, his attaining knowledge of new things. The most important thing in our attitude towards knowledge is being honest with ourselves. Confucius said to Tsulu, oh yeah, here it is. Shall I tell you what it is to know, or what wisdom is? To say you know when you know, and to say you do not know when you do not. That is knowledge. On another occasion, when Tsulu offered what Confucius considered an ill-judged comment, he admonished him by saying, where a gentleman is ignorant, one would expect him not to offer any opinion. For his part, Confucius never proposed anything that was not founded on knowledge. There are, he said, presumably men who innovate without possessing knowledge. But that is not a fault I have. So, and along that conversation of what true knowledge is and the harmony to be found between actions and speech, Confucius very often spoke of the glide man, or glibness. So basically being able to weave and fabricate something that sounds knowledgeable, that sounds intelligent, but is based on no such thing. So it was very prevalent in those days, just as it is today, where you have people that really do sound like they know what they're talking about, but don't. And so if you're not a good judge of character, you might fall for those arguments. You might fall for those voices, those talking heads. There's another reason why it's very important to be a good judge of character. This responsible attitude towards knowledge is most important to the teacher. One of the counts, and we looked at this last week, or the week before, that Sun Tzu daily examined himself on was, have I passed on to others anything that I have not tried out myself? It's put somewhat differently in that translation, but should sound familiar. Now moving on to courage. Courage was counted one of the major virtues. This is clear from the following saying attributed to Confucius in qing, or the mean. Wisdom, goodness, love, and courage. These three are virtues universally acknowledged in the empire. Here's yet another place, a third place now, where this trying virtue is mentioned. In the Analects, Confucius's attitude towards courage is in fact much more critical. True, it is an indispensable virtue in a gentleman if he is to see his moral purpose through, because he has to pursue that purpose fearlessly. And only the man of courage is never afraid. Faced with what is right, to leave it undone, according to Confucius, shows a lack of courage. Hence Confucius said, a good man is sure to possess courage. But he goes on immediately to add, a courageous man does not necessarily possess goodness. Courage is indeed a double-edged sword. In the hands of the good, it is a means to the realization of goodness. But in the hands of the wicked, it is equally a means to the realization of wickedness. To put this in even stronger terms, neither great goodness nor great wickedness can be accomplished by men devoid of courage. So it's like the virtue or the means by which the other virtues are they're actualized, they're brought into, like they're practiced, they're done. Confucius showed that he was well aware of this. He said, unless a man has the spirit of the rights, in having courage he will become unruly. On another occasion, he said of the gentleman, he dislikes those who, while possessing courage, lack the spirit of the rights. Equally, being fond of courage while detesting poverty will lead men to unruly behavior. Courage, to be a virtue, must be in the service of morality or goodness. Hence, when asked whether the gentleman considered courage a supreme quality, Confucius answered, for the gentleman, it is morality or goodness that is supreme. Possessed of courage, but devoid of goodness, a gentleman will make trouble, while a small man will be a brigand. There remain two major virtues to be dealt with. First, there is sin. H-S-I-N. I don't know exactly. I think it's Shin.
Yeah, the
Shin.
PN in this book is ridiculous.
Yes.
Sorry.
This is a concept which has no exact equivalent in English. To be Shin is to be reliable in word.
Yeah, that's Shin. Yeah, I know that one.
An important part of this has, of course, to do with promise keeping. But when Confucius talks of being Shin in word, he means more than that. To be Shin in word applies to all one's words. It concerns, besides promises, resolutions concerning future conduct, or even plain statements of fact. Not to carry out a resolution is to fail to be Shin. To have made a statement not borne out by facts, whether they be present or future facts, is equally to fail to be Shin. In this connection, and this is the return of this conversation, Confucius often opposes the terms yin, or word, and xing, or deed. So word and deed, action and words. For one's deed to fail to match one's word is to fail to be qing. Hence the importance of seeing to it that one lives up to one's word. If you're going to say you're doing something, say you're going to commit to something, you do it. I think Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. This is also kind of seen in the way we follow through with something that we start. It's not just saying, I'm going to do this. It's not like you make some proclamation to everybody. I'm going to do this by the end of this month. So hold me accountable. It's not really being able to live up to that or not. It's about when you start a thing, you see it through. Even if it's not a very important thing, the more people, or the more that people see you just kind of relaxing off the thing and, oh, yeah, this is, I'm not really down with this anymore. I don't really need to follow through with this. It's not that consequential of a thing anyways. That will communicate something to other people, and that will start to build a habit in yourself of being all too willing to relax out of, or no longer commit yourself to something. Do not miss the importance of this in the smallest things, because it's in the smallest things that will form the strength or the resolution by which you're able to commit yourself to greater things. The gentleman is ashamed of his word, outstripping his deed. And claims made immodestly are difficult to live up to. Hence, in ancient times, men were loath to speak, because they counted it shameful if their person failed to keep up with their words. The safest course is to never make any claims until the deed is done. Thus, the gentleman puts his words into action before allowing his words to follow his action. Confucius' general advice is that one should be quick to act and listen, but slow to speak. Sounds pretty familiar. Concerning qing, there is one saying which is particularly interesting. Yu Tzu said, to be trustworthy in word, qing, is close to being moral, in that it enables one's words to be repeated. It's an interesting way to consider it. Close to being moral, let's say, close to being good, this most supreme virtue. So to be trustworthy in word is very close to that. Not just because it gives you a good reputation, but because now you are someone, your life, it says as words, but even your life, even beyond what you say, is something that can be repeated. It's something that can be followed after as an example. That's a really consequential thing. So don't think of it just in terms of whether or not people see you as a trustworthy person, but further, maybe even the weight and the gravity, the meaning of what you say is brought to a much higher and more substantial place in the minds and hearts of those who hear you and observe your life. Because what you do and what you say is trustworthy. Your actions align with your words. The tragedy of the boy who cried wolf, I think we all know that story, is that when he repeated his cry, nobody took him seriously because he was not qing on the previous occasions. Being trustworthy in word is close to being good precisely because of this aspect of trustworthiness. It is to this aspect that Yu Tzu wanted to draw our attention. But to say that trustworthiness in word is close to being moral or good is to say that the two are not identical. There are bound to be cases where an inflexible adherence to the principle of trustworthiness in word will lead to action that is not good. So it is possible to be a little bit too obsessed with this idea of, being trustworthy and always doing what you say you do. It's an interesting balance here. Confucius describes a man who insists on keeping his word and seeing his actions through to the end as showing a stubborn petty-mindedness. So it shouldn't be the thing that completely it is a thing that can cloud your judgment, is what Confucius is suggesting. Second, there is qing, or reverence. This is a rather ancient concept. In early child literature, qing describes the frame of mind of a man taking part in a sacrifice. It is different from that shown in other religions. In other religions, there is fear and abject submission in face of the power of the deity. Qing, on the other hand, is born of the awareness of the immensity of one's responsibility to promote the welfare of the common people. It is a combination of the fear of failing in the responsibility one is charged with and the solemn single-mindedness directed towards the satisfactory discharging of that responsibility. So sacrifice, in this sense, didn't just have to do with this trembling fear and trepidation towards this higher power, but it was a lot more culturally conscious than that. So it didn't just have to do with, because when you think of someone trembling in fear towards a deity like that, what is the only thing that they're communicating? This base sense of self-preservation. Like, I just have to appease this deity because otherwise my life is doomed. But this reverence here, this qing, is speaking of an attitude of heart where it's not about whether or not you are going to survive and thrive as a submissive being under this higher power, but rather you have been vested by this higher power with a responsibility for not just your own life, but the lives of other people. And there's a way in which that higher power desires you to work out that responsibility in other people's lives that you are responsible for. And so that kind of changes, that's a different kind of fear. That's a different kind of reference. It's not based in self-preservation. It's based actually, and this is when I read this week, I was very much reminded of what we went over last week in our Seven Spirits time concerning the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord does not have to do with self-preservation. It has to do with a real and intimate relationship with Him, a knowledge of Him, by which we take on a kind of weight or burden of responsibility as a son. Qing, or reverence, is to be distinguished from qing, or respectfulness. So reverence and respectfulness are considered two different things. The latter, or respectfulness, is a matter of visible appearance and manner. Qing is mostly mentioned in connection with the observance of the rites. So it definitely has to do with outward practice of things. For instance, the gentleman is respectful towards others and observant of the rites. And he is said to turn his thought to appearing respectful when it comes to his demeanor. A man should be respectful in his conversation with others, because by so doing, he can hope to be spared insults and humiliations. If a man is respectful, he will not be treated with insolence or disrespect. To be respectful is close to being observant of the rites, in that it enables one to stay clear of disgrace and insult. So in many ways you can consider something like qing, or respect, to be the outward manifestation of that reverential responsibility one has. And again, it's not reverence of another human being per se, And if it is that, it's not like it's not to the point of like a worship. It's respectfulness. And we'll see respect can actually lose its purpose and its power and its meaning when it is not coming from a reverential heart, because respect can mean very shallow things. In fact, you guys read that this week in our reading, I think, when it was talking about what it actually looks like to truly respect or honor your parents, right? Confucius says, these days, for people, that just means making sure they're well fed. But don't we do the same thing to cattle and horses? Obviously, there's something about the demeanor of our hearts towards parents that is actually of much more import than this shallow idea of respect.
I was just wondering, so qing, the first one that we talked about with being reliable in word, is different from the one that you're talking about later, which is reverence, right?
Yes, yeah.
Terms.
Reverence is qing.
And
Which
how's
if
that
you-
one spelled?
At least I'd spell this book as CHING.
I would use a Q, QI.
Yeah, you can do that too.
And sin is SIN.
Yeah.
XI.
Oh, that's actually.
First one?
I bet they have it in the glossary of terms.
Like shin. Sin.
This
book's
And then what is reverence?
QING.
Where is it?
I don't know the character in it, but I know it's the. This is like an old page. It's like really one. It's terrible.
So trustworthiness you can find on page 242. It's Sheen, yeah. So there's that to reference.
Yes. And there's that big on right.
Okay, so last thing. You guys finished all of your reading assignment, right? Okay. So I'm giving you your next reading assignment. Starting at 2.9. And then you're going to read everything following that to 2.18. So 2.9 to 2.18. Also, read 222. And then we looked at it today, but I would also like you to read the Analects commentary of 7.8. Spend some good time reflecting on that one too. So in light of the beginning of our discussion.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm not okay. Never mind.
We all good?
Oh.
Got it? All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.